Hello, everyone. So this is a pmlesson.com live session. I'm here with Mohammed. We're going to do a favorite product question today. Before we kind of jump into the session, Mohammed, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit to folks who might be joining in?
Yeah, so my name is Mohammed Hussein. I'm from the greater Seattle, Washington area. I'm a rising senior in studying informatics. You can go to ischool.uw.edu to learn more about that program. And I recently just finished up a product management internship over at Starbucks, where I worked at the mobile team. And last summer, I was a product manager intern at a late stage startup called Smartsheet. They actually went public back in May. So yeah, I have a little bit of some PM internship experience.
Cool. And what's your current goal with product management? What are you looking to break into? What types of jobs? Things like that.
Um, I mean, I guess my overall goal is to work at like a really cool company where I can make products um, that are at the end of the day affecting the lives of users and making their lives better. So ideally, a company like Google, Facebook, Uber, Microsoft. I actually have interviews with all of them coming up, so this is really good practice for those companies, definitely.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Well, I'm getting everything just finally set up here. Um, Live product management interview. So, for those of you who are joining, I know a couple of people are joining in, especially who are people who are in the PM Lesson course. If you're curious to learn more about PM Lesson or get more product management interview help, we post on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our website, as well as a variety of our platforms on our newsletter, etc. So just make sure you're plugged into our system if you want to get some really helpful product management exercises and practice. The way I see it, the best way to prepare for these interviews is to actually get practice. Nothing will prepare you
Mhm.
better than actually practicing them, and that's why we do these sessions. So that's why today we're going to be interviewing Mohammed on a couple quick favorite product questions as kind of an exercise that everyone will hopefully benefit from this. Um, Cool. So, without further ado, let's jump into the interview. So, to start off with, this is the classic PM interview question, the question that's asked on pretty much every PM interview. What is your favorite product and why?
Yeah, so I guess my favorite product, and this is something that is kind of cliche amongst a lot of people, but I would have to say is the iPhone. Um, I used to work at the Apple Store, and I would say that, and I worked at the Genius Bar, so I have a lot of familiarity with the iPhone, what it can do, how it's really something that has changed my life and it's changed the lives of others. It kind of is what got me to go into the Apple ecosystem and get more products, which I guess is kind of part of their entire business model. That once you get one product, you kind of go in and you get other products within the ecosystem. But it allows me to do things like FaceTime with my family overseas. It allows me to use my favorite apps like Facebook, Instagram. It allows me to get places too by using apps like Uber and Lyft and Lime Bike and all those kind of things. So it's definitely powerful. It has a really good ecosystem. It has a great camera. So for people who love to take photos, they can utilize the power of the camera as well as the external accessories that they sell too to kind of give you a better experience. The accessibility is also something that I really really like about it, and that's kind of what I learned by working at the Apple Store. I was able to see a lot of people who maybe they had some visual disabilities or they had hearing problems, but because of the one of the goals of Apple is to make their products accessible for everyone. I was able to see people who could use the iPhone even better than I could, and they were blind or they were deaf, and that's just something that's really fascinating. So they make world class experiences for people from all backgrounds and all abilities, pretty much.
Gotcha. So the iPhone is your favorite product. It's this all-around fantastic device. I can see that you're an Apple fanboy because you have the
Yeah,
AirPods in.
yeah, I got the AirPods. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm using MacBook, so.
Um, so this is a great, fantastic product that has such a wide appeal. And you mentioned so many great features like camera, accessibility,
Mhm.
things like that. How or why is the iPhone a better or more favorite product to you than an Android device, like a Pixel phone or a Samsung Galaxy
Yeah,
phone?
yeah.
Because those devices do have excellent cameras and they do have
Mhm.
accessibility features. Why did you pick the iPhone, or what is it about the iPhone that you think is superior?
Yeah, so I was actually a hardcore Android fanboy before I got an iPhone. I actually, before even working at the Apple Store, I worked at the Microsoft Store. So I was really kind of indulged into like the whole, Surface and Android kind of ecosystem. Well, not there wasn't even an ecosystem, so I didn't even know what that ecosystem was like. I had a Samsung Galaxy S7. Yeah, it had a great camera. The customization within Android is also really, really cool and everything. But I think the number one thing was um, I personally just had a lot of struggles, especially with battery life. Battery life was definitely like the number one thing. As a student, as well as someone who works, I want my battery to be able to last all day. And what with the Android phones that I had, I wasn't really getting that experience. I went online and I tried to find as many resources as I could to see how I can, better optimize my device. And I tried following those, worked for a little bit, but overall, just because, you didn't have that optimization within the hardware and the software, I wasn't getting that experience and I wanted to try something new. And I got the iPhone. Um, I fell in love with it, fell in love with the ecosystem, and I ended up getting a Mac as well, and then later an Apple Watch. So um, I guess you could say it's kind of like the gateway drug into the Apple ecosystem. Um, so yeah, I think that's what kind of makes it stand out a little bit more is the optimization of both the hardware and the software and how like in sync they work, and it's overall just making the user experience better in my personal opinion and
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so it sounds like battery life was one of the push factors for you, and then once you
Hmm.
got hooked into the ecosystem, it really kind of took you. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that you mentioned some things about the design and the
Hmm.
excellentness of the iPhone. Um, what so the iPhone as it is what iPhone do you have actually, or what
I have
iPhones
the
generally are
iPhone
you?
10.
Okay,
iPhone
the
10.
iPhone 10.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So why do you think the iPhone is still an excellent product? So surely when it was first
Hmm.
made, and especially, many iterations of it, but I think a lot of people have kind of a lackluster impression of the newest iPhone releases. Is there something
Hmm.
specific? And a lot of the things that you're mentioning here are fantastic for kind of the what the iPhone was a few years ago. Also, like the ecosystem was there, the camera was
Hmm.
there, the battery life was probably there. What is it about the newer models of the iPhone that you think still makes it an excellent product to this day, or is it why is it still your favorite product? I guess you know
Uh,
I'm
yeah.
curious.
Yeah. So I would say that I do think that the iPhone has kind of been lacking, kind of slacking in terms of innovation. Like, yeah, the iPhone 10, you got like, the entire like bezel-less display and the dual lens camera and all that kind of stuff. But that's something that we've seen in other devices as well. So they definitely haven't been innovating as much as they used to. But I think the thing that brings me back, as well as brings other people back, is kind of um their passion for customer service, that like Apple's passion for customer service, and the fact that I can go into an Apple store once my device isn't when my device isn't working, and I can actually speak to a person who is a legitimate expert in terms of you know providing me with the best solutions, and that's working, someone who works in the Apple store. um when I had a Samsung phone and I had issues with it, I brought it back to my carrier, which is T-Mobile, and you know they're only trained in selling people plans, maybe some preliminary knowledge when it comes to the phones and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they're trying to just sell you, the plan that will make them the most money. Um, because they're on commission. Whereas with the Apple Store, I know those people because personally I work there. They're not on commission, so I know that they're truly trying to give me the best experience as possible. So it's kind of the sense of trust that Apple has built between themselves and the customers is what kind of brings me, as well as a lot of other people, back to kind of going and getting the next iPhone.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So that kind of is the first part of this question, where we dive into a little bit of your favorite product,
Mhm.
understanding it, things like that. The second part of this question, which is a little bit longer and a little bit more in depth, how would you improve the iPhone? We talked a little bit about how the iPhone was maybe lacking. Um,
Yeah,
if you were responsible for the iPhone, how would you improve it? What would you change if you were the head PM for the iPhone?
yeah. Um, so I think the number one thing that a lot of people have kind of a frustration with, and this might be towards a niche audience, but one of the things that made the iPhone stand out originally was Siri. Siri was the first voice assistant, like AI companion to a smartphone, and it was groundbreaking. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is so awesome!" But we've seen other voice assistants come in the past years. Microsoft with Cortana, um, Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, Samsung with Bixby, which a lot of people kind of agree that they're kind of in last place in terms of being a voice assistant and all that kind of stuff. But Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa, they're definitely a lot of people, a lot of users consider them to be a lot smarter because they're connected to the cloud, um, and they record your previous interactions with them, and it kind of learns who you are as you use it. Whereas with Siri, everything is local. It's not connected to any kind of cloud. It only remembers the things that you have to put in when you're setting up the phone, like what your name is, where do you live, all your information that's in your contact card. But it doesn't remember the other things that you ask it, like oh Siri, what's um the capital of Alabama or something like that. Like, it doesn't store that information. Whereas, we see with other assistants, they're connected to the cloud. They store that information. They kind of learn as you interact with them, where Siri doesn't. So I guess what I would do would be to kind of take that route as well. And kind of have Siri, although that's kind of pushing Apple's commitment to keeping your information private and all that kind of stuff. If they truly want to improve that experience, I would say that they could, look into um, having the same approach as Amazon and Google by connecting it to the cloud, keeping that information, learning as you go. Because I've even heard from engineers, but one of the benefits, living in Seattle is, networking with people who work on the Alexa team, and they say that Siri definitely is the best when it comes to like natural language processing and all that kind of stuff. So, far ahead of Google and Alexa in those aspects. But if they could just kind of give that approach, kind of like what I give, I think that Siri would definitely have a better edge against the competition.
Gotcha. And so I think it's an excellent point. The voice assistants are a huge trend, and it's great to tap into that trend and to mention that in your interview. Why, like, obviously Siri is kind of staying a little stagnant, isn't innovating as much
Hmm.
as Google's Assistant and Amazon Alexa. I think that there's a difference in strategy there between Google's
Hmm.
Assistant and Amazon's Alexa Assistant. Um,
Yeah.
how would you think about shaping Siri? So let me just to give you sort of a sense of what I'm asking. There's kind of, you could talk about the ecosystem of developer-enabled apps, and whether or not you would want to develop a really strong developer ecosystem or not if you're
Hmm.
working on Siri. So what I mean by that is like third-party apps that hook into Siri. So
Yeah.
maybe Siri can open up a new app on your phone. So how would you
Yeah.
think about that working with Siri? And then the other
Hmm.
question I have to you is, um, how would you think about Siri on different surfaces? So I know Alexa is existing on multiple surfaces, and Siri also has now entered the Mac I think is a recent update.
Yeah, yeah.
So those are the two. So I'm just kind of honing in on two areas where you might have to define what Siri, how you would shape Siri. So curious to hear your strategy, your thoughts on how that would work.
Yeah, and it's actually something that Apple is actually introducing. I don't know if you're familiar with Siri shortcuts
I'm
for
familiar with.
iOS 12.
I
So
might
so
not
that's
be.
pretty okay.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
yes, so yeah, Siri shortcuts. Because that's actually something I really did want to do. Um, but I didn't say it because they're already introducing it. So Siri shortcuts is that third party support where you can kind of like program um uh, I guess kind of like if else statements or whatever within iOS 12, where it's like you can say a phrase or something like that, and then you can have it be connected to like a third party app for like Starbucks or whatever. You can just tell Siri like, "Hey Siri, tell Starbucks to order my usual," or whatever like that. So you'll like go into Starbucks and like based off of those rules that you made or whatever, it would order your usual for you. Um, so that's something I did want to do, but it looks like that they're already doing that. But I mean, that's only for iOS though. If
Hmm.
they really want to kind of push that for forward onto different platforms, then I guess I'd suggest then having something similar to Siri shortcuts, on the Mac, having a lot more third party support for the HomePod as well, because that's one of the things that kind of made it not as successful as Amazon Alexa or the Google Home Assistant was. It's really just kind of embedded within the Apple ecosystem, and the third party support for the HomePod isn't as good as it is on other platforms. So I guess introducing those shortcuts onto um, the Mac as well as the HomePod or even the Apple Watch, for example, would probably be the next step in order to kind of make it stand out a little bit more.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
Okay. And then, you know, so we touched on both of those things, I guess. What do you think is a higher priority? Like if you're deciding between really expanding third party access or you're deciding between expanding the services that Siri exists on, which one would you prioritize more?
I would say third party access, just because you don't want to kind of put all your I'd say it's kind of like A/B testing, right? So you're kind of using the other services or the other devices as you're controlled. So just continue to use your regular, have your traditional Siri functionality on other devices, and kind of using iOS devices like the iPad and the iPhone, and kind of measuring to see how many people are actually using Siri shortcuts and like the third party Siri access and all that kind of stuff. How many people are actually using that on iOS devices? If we find that a lot of people are using it, and we find that a lot of people want it, based off of qualitative data like customer concerns, product feedback, uh, Reddit posts, all that kind of stuff. If we see that there's a need to introduce that onto other devices, then yeah, we can maybe roll it out onto other devices. But kind of first test it out on iOS, see how it works, and then kind of go from there.
Cool. Okay. Um, that's pretty much it in terms of our questions. Usually I try to keep this to about 20 minutes. Is there
Okay.
anything else you wanted to add about, and then we'll kick it to feedback and talk a little bit more casually about stuff.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you wanted to add to this question that you feel like would be helpful to understand why this is your favorite product and
Mhm.
how you would improve it?
Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Um, cool. So, for those of you who are watching, we have a few live viewers. You are super, super encouraged to ask questions and comments and thoughts, and even just say hi if you want to just say hi in the comments below. It just helps us get a pulse from you guys as well. So, please do that if you guys are so inclined. Otherwise, this to remind everyone who's watching, this is a pmlesson.com live mock interview. The idea here is we want to help everyone get practice, so we are doing these lives so that everyone can kind of learn. And we are asking what is your favorite product questions for these for now. If you are interested in learning more, you can visit pmlesson.com. And chime in there. And thanks, Kevin, for the comment. We'll address that in a little bit. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to quickly jump to kind of feedback and some thoughts on the question, and then we can talk about the comments below. Kevin, thanks for your question. Others who are viewing, again, super encouraged to ask questions. I think it's a really important way to learn is to actually have comments and thoughts about these types of things too. So generally, I thought, great answer. One thing that
Thank
I
you.
love that you did is the iPhone well. You know the iPhone well enough because you sold it in Apple stores, and you also worked in Microsoft stores.
Yeah.
So, in fact, given that you knew it so well, I wish I heard even more about the differences between those two and the competitor question. But that was great. Like, it's great to pick a question,
Okay.
a product that you
Yeah.
know so well. So when we started off, we kind of talked about, how the iPhone is an all-around excellent product, and you listed out a bunch of different kind of features or aspects to it that were amazing. What I wish we had was a little bit of a metaphor or something to kind of like wrap up all those pieces into something that was a little more pithy and hard hitting. So what I mean by this is maybe you can start off by saying like the iPhone is the ultimate remote control for the world. And that's something that's not my idea. That's something that's been said, that the smartphones are remote controls for the world. But, then just tell me how it's the ultimate remote control, or it's the ultimate assistant to the world, and tell me how it's the ultimate assistant, or what is it like? What is like this, or is it just like your ultimate internet capable device? Like, is it just like the ultimate device? Is that what it is? Is it the mobile? Yeah. So basically, just frame it for me, because otherwise, I'm hearing all these awesome things, but I don't know exactly how to piece it together, and I'm just kind of hearing all these disparate ideas. So that'd be my one recommendation, but otherwise I thought excellent job. Then we kind of moved on to competitors. When we talk about competitors, I think okay, so I would say that we talked a little bit about how the battery was different, the ecosystem was different, but those are kind of things that are sort of like obvious from an outsider's perspective. I would wish, yeah. So one thing that would be awesome is if you could tell me something that was very new. So what's something that I don't understand about the ecosystems that you understand because you worked at Microsoft, you worked at Apple, that really just drives the reason that this is a best product. And maybe like at the end of the day, it's design. And I think you touched on that a little bit, but we didn't actually dive into it. But like the iOS is just a beautiful, fun product to use. And Apple at its core is a fashion company. And that's why Apple is so effective at getting users, getting people to use these products and getting people to love using these products and to feel the products. And that care does not go into Google's products or goes into Microsoft products. That would be one. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no. I was actually going to mention, I don't know why I didn't say it until after, but kind of just like the whole store experience. And I was going to kind of tie it into that. That like from working in the Microsoft store, like it was very obvious that they were trying to copy Apple, but like they just weren't able to do it because they didn't have that sleek design, that amazing ecosystem and like the features within the ecosystem, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why it was in my mind. I just forgot to say it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would be an excellent point. I think like just talking about the store and how that frames the product's experience. That's kind of really interesting to talk about, actually. That's fascinating. And I would love to hear more about that, actually. So yeah, bring up some of that. Don't stay with like the battery stuff as much because it's a little less novel, I would say. Ecosystem, like everyone, I know the Apple ecosystem is fantastic. We had one of the other PM Laka interviews here talk about the Apple ecosystem. I know it's an excellent ecosystem, but that doesn't necessarily make it a favorite product to me. It just makes it an addictive product, So maybe I would focus on a little bit of the other pieces of like why it's such an excellent product. The other thing that and you brought up trust, which I really liked, actually. So that one would be a good one to expand on. That Apple just has really great user trust. Like users know when they buy an Apple product that they're going to get an excellent product. They know they're not getting some kind of thing that will break. And that's maybe something worth mentioning. And like the fact that Apple just has that brand of trust is really important too. So yeah, I think you could expand on those pieces a little bit.
Okay, cool.
But otherwise, excellent answer. I liked the iPhone. It seems like you really clearly know it. It would be really cool, like since you worked at these stores, to talk about that experience and talk about what you just mentioned.
For sure.
So I want to kick it to answering Kevin's question, then I'll ask you, Mohammed, if you have any other questions about this segment, and then we'll move on to the favorite improvement, the improvement part of the question.
Okay.
So Kevin is asking, although I love the iPhone, it seems cliche to use it as a favorite product in an interview question. Should it be used? So the answer to that question, it's an excellent question, comes up a
Hmm.
lot. I would say that, Kevin, at the end of the day, you want to pick a question that you want to pick a product that will be saying something, saying something. Here, I'm just going to, oops. Okay. Sorry, I'm just playing around with the video so that it switches a little bit. Okay, cool. My video quality was a little bad. Um, so I would say at the end of the day, Kevin, that you want to pick a product where you can say something new. If you are saying the same thing that everyone knows, and if your answer is cliche, then do not give me that answer. But if your answer is novel and is an interesting take that I wouldn't have otherwise known about that cliche product, go for it. That's what I'm trying to actually tease out here with Mohammed too. Is he had some really interesting points. Some of them were maybe more mainstream. Some of them were more interesting and kind of insightful. And it'd be better to make sure that whatever product you pick, you're saying something insightful, you're saying something new. So that would be my advice to you, Kevin, about picking the iPhone versus any product. It's not better to pick some product that you barely use just because it's like cool or new. What's better is to pick a product that you know well, that you can say interesting things about. And if you can't say interesting things about products that you know well, start thinking about the products that you use, so that you can say interesting things. Because that's part of what a product manager does, is thinking about how products are used and how you can kind of bring out insightful comments about them. Okay, cool. Anything else, Mohammed? Any questions you have about this part? And then we're going to kick it to the improvement part.
Uh, no, but will there be time for like additional questions at the end from me to you or?
Yeah,
Okay,
totally.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, cool. So now I want to, and again, folks who are watching, continue to comment and chime in. Thanks, Kevin, for your comment. And everyone, please comment and participate. So for the improved products part of this question, you mentioned Siri. I think it's an excellent choice because voice assistant technology is booming. It is a huge
Mhm.
space, and it is something that Apple is lacking in. So I think you really nailed it on the head with a really big area of improvement for Apple. So I would love that answer. Keep that answer. By the way, Mohammed, you're a little like low on the screen. You might want
Oh,
to.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, no
yeah.
worries. Yeah, cool, perfect. What I would say about your answer is that you had some excellent points. There are a few ways that I think I was trying to kind of because you had such an excellent answer. I was trying to grill you on it and trying to
Yeah,
attack
yeah,
it from
yeah.
different angles and bring out things. Um, I think overall you did well. I would say that a couple elements that might be worth bringing up in this question. One would be developer community, and I think like if you're going the developer route, it's really important to develop a community, and it can be really beneficial to develop that really great community because once you have a bunch of people developing third-party apps for it, they are now
Mhm.
advocates for your platform, right? Because
Yeah.
now they put on their website that like, oh, hey, check out this app on Siri, and then people are going to check out Siri more. So I think the positive network effect of having third-party developer ecosystem outweighs could be an argument that of why it outweighs expanding to different platforms first. Um,
Hmm.
you know, so I think that was one point that I wish I had heard or that I came up when I was talking that could have added to your answer. Um, Otherwise, I would say, you know, when you bring up the discussion about Siri, you can already kind of preemptively talk about Alexa and Google Assistant. There's a lot of differences there. There are a lot of strategies
Yeah.
there. Alexa has decided to name its assistant. Google has not. Google is really weighing heavily on the knowledge part of it. Alexa, I think,
Mhm.
is really working on skills and making sure that's awesome. There's purchasing and all this kind of stuff. So one question that comes to mind is also, what is Apple's value proposition as a voice assistant in this space, right? What can Apple do that these players can't do? And maybe it's the ecosystem that Apple has that it can just tap into all these things really easily, and you're already connected to all these things. Or maybe it's NLP, as you were mentioning. Maybe it's NLP processing just outweighs it all, and it's the technology that makes it better. Um,
Hmm.
but it would be good to have an opinion on that when you go through the interview question.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, Cool. So, any other questions about Siri specifically? I had one other comment at the end.
No.
Okay, cool. Yeah, overall, I think you did a really good job with that one. So I really liked
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great choice. And, one thing I recommend for all people who are doing these PM interviews, always use the products that you talk about. So use Siri a little bit, use Google a little bit, Assistant a little bit, use Alexa a little
Hmm.
bit, get to know them. What are the kind of key differences there? Um, Cool. And again, for those of you watching, this is a pmlesson.com live mock interview. You can visit more information about PM Lesson at pmlesson.com. The last piece of advice I had for you, Mohammed,
Hmm.
was at the end of the question, just summarize kind of what you went through is a simple little hack
Okay.
that helps. So just, even
Cool.
if I ask you, do you have anything else to add? You can just quickly summarize in 2 sentences or do it on your own. It's up to you if it's natural or not, depending on the
Hmm.
interviewer and the situation. But I think it can be really a good way to hit your points home
Yeah,
harder. So, okay,
for
this is
sure.
what I think. This is why I think it. And that's my answer.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
Cool. Okay. Overall, great job.
Thank
So
you.
now we'll kick it to kind of question and answer style. So I'll just update the banner saying that pmlesson.com Q&A. Ask questions. And again, ask questions in the comments below. It's really effective when we do live interview sessions. I see, there we have about 5 viewers or so right now. So hopefully you guys are benefiting, and you're encouraged to comment in the questions below. I know that a lot of people will watch this at a different time because it's during work hours, so it's not the most ideal time for most people. Cool. Okay. So any other questions you had, Mohammed, or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. So, I know this is a very common PM interview question. I've been asked it in some interviews as well. But so for this question, should I be like prepared to answer one like what's your favorite hardware product, software product, and like non-tech product? Is that like something kind of good to have?
So honestly, there's so many permutations of this that I would prepare a few favorite product questions and just
Okay.
I realize that you're not going to be fully prepared. One thing that I've
Yeah.
heard happen is like the interviewer asks you what's your favorite product, you answer, and then they
Hmm.
ask what's your second favorite product, and then you answer
Yeah.
that, and then you have to answer the product question for that one. So
Yeah.
it's up
Yeah.
to them to throw a loop. I would say just
Yeah.
have a
Hmm.
few of them covered, have maybe 2 or 3 kind of rehearsed or prepared. The iPhone is a good one. You could talk about iOS probably if they ask for a software one, and you can just pivot to kind of talking about iOS,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
similar. Um,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't stress it too much. You're not going to prepare for every single
Yeah.
kind of private
Of
product
course.
question they'll ask.
Hmm. Um, is there any like specific kind of like framework you suggest for kind of tackling these kind of questions? Because I know that like in Decode and Conquer, I think he says to like use like the three major like of the design principles or whatever. Like how is it innovative? How does it like impact other people? And I forgot what the third one is. But like, is there like a specific one that you try to follow when you get asked that question?
Overall, my approach with frameworks is that I think they're always over applied. So I would
Hmm.
recommend trying to be natural and try not to use
Yeah.
a certain framework or anything like that. I think
Hmm.
what you really want to lean into here is your passion for the product, that you actually know this product and that you actually like this product.
Yeah.
When you're giving your answer, I would say have like 3 points or some gist of points you want me to get out of it, and an
Hmm.
overall kind of capturing of that product. So whether it's the iPhone is your ultimate remote control, here's why I think that. One, two,
Yeah.
three, boom.
Hmm.
That's a really great way to start off with. I think for most people, I think when you get to higher PM interviewing levels, you're going to want to have something even more natural and kind of innovative, and maybe
Hmm.
you're couching it behind the existing competitor products and things like that, and that's how you're
Yeah.
talking about it, or you're talking about market trends and you're analyzing it that way. But I think for the most part, what I would recommend is just starting out with, okay, this is my overall impression. These are the 3 points that I have. And then this is a summary of what I just told you, as,
Hmm.
as a general framework to start with.
Yeah.
I think it is good to talk about how it's innovative. It's good to talk about a lot of these aspects of the product, but it really depends on the product, right? Like if your
Hmm.
favorite product is um, a microwave, and just like at the end of the day, it's a microwave, that's cool. Like
Yeah.
that's totally a fine product. You might not want to talk about how innovative microwaves are because they're not new products, like they're existing products. So why is a microwave so amazing of a product? And I would say I would recommend speaking from the heart, having a little bit of a 3-point structure, but that's
Yeah.
all you need.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Cool. Well, we are pretty much done with the session. If you guys have any comments, now is the time to post them in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you for joining our pmlesson.com live mock interview session. Again, if you want any more advice or information about product management interview prep, visit pmlesson.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time because we just got 2 more comments from Luis and Kevin. So I'll start with Luis's question, and then we'll wrap up the session at the very end. How much information should we know about our favorite products' competitors, especially if we're not as familiar with them? Okay, huge red flag, Luis. If you are using a favorite product that you do not know its competitors, you should go use its competitors. Why? I'm skeptical that you know that this product is such a great product if you have not tried its competitors, because maybe its competitors are better than the product that you think. So I would absolutely go recommend you right now go look at the competitor products that you're thinking about, and try to understand why you think your product is better than theirs or why theirs is better than yours, and understand that space really well. And if you don't know the competitors and you feel like you can't understand them, try to find a product where you do know the space a little bit better. Something that like Foursquare versus Yelp. And if you pick Yelp, you should talk about why Foursquare is maybe not as good, or vice versa, Lyft and Uber, things like that. It almost comes up naturally when you bring up a question. Like if you say that Lyft is your favorite product, of course, somewhere in that answer, you're going to need to tell me why Uber is not your favorite product, because that's just in the space. Mohammed, do you have any other thoughts or questions on that? Now's your chance to kind of also
Yeah, no,
help.
I totally agree. Like, I definitely, I have an Alexa at home, so like that's why I feel like I could probably speak to Alexa better. I stopped using Google Assistant on my phone. So yeah, if I do get asked that question, I'm definitely gonna take a look into, especially especially Google Assistant, and kind of comparing, Siri to both Alexa and Google Assistant. So I definitely agree that, are you really sure it's your favorite product if you haven't tried out the competitors? So yeah.
Cool. Hope that's helpful, Luis. And then Kevin has a quick question. Both of you have different camera framing techniques. Is there a preferred style for interviews? I think you're referring to the way our faces are in the camera. I don't think that I'm not sure I totally understand the question. Maybe Mohammed understands it better than I do. But I don't think, I don't think it matters how you frame yourself in the camera for the interview, as long as you're clear, your face is clear, and you're lighted well. Maybe would be another tip. That is, if you're doing a video interview.
Are you sitting at a desk right now?
I'm sitting on a desk. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I actually have my laptop on my bed because my room doesn't. I don't have space for a desk in my room. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter as long as it doesn't look like there's junk behind you and it looks like behind you. So I wouldn't stress that, Kevin. I would not worry too much about that. Okay, cool. So this was a pmlesson.com live mock interview. I'm joined by Mohammed, and I am Stephen. Thank you for joining me, Mohammed.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully the rest of the PM lesson course will be helpful. And I'm going to end the broadcast now. Thanks all for joining us.